Welcome to the SaaStock How-To series, in which we aim to answer questions posed by our community and give you 3 actionable takeaways. I'm Alex Suma, CEO of SaaStock, which helps SaaS companies get traction, grow and scale through our community, conferences and content. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by William McQuillan, partner at Frontline Ventures. How's it going, William?
Hey, Alex, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here on the How-To series. So William, the question that asked by our community here is how to approach the right investors. Quite a common question. I thought I'd ask you this, so over to you.
Great, thanks, Alex. So when your team kind of emailed me about this, the way I thought about it was I would break it into 5 steps. So hopefully people can kind of think about it pretty straightforwardly. The first thing, and it sounds pretty counterintuitive, but don't speak to investors. At least don't speak to investors too early. You know, so often I see entrepreneurs approaching investors way before they're ready to fundraise. And I think part of this is the VC's fault. VCs on panel discussions, in blogs and podcasts, they always tell entrepreneurs, you know, build relationships with the investors before you fundraise. And actually, I think that that's advice that favors the venture capitalists, but not necessarily the entrepreneurs. In reality, if you can build a relationship with an investor over 2 years, that's great. You will build a proper relationship. But trying to build a kind of a semi-faux relationship 3 to 6 months before a round doesn't actually build a deep relationship. All it does is it makes it feel like you're starting to raise your round 6 months before you are. And one of the problems of most venture investors is that they have long memories and short attention spans. And so, you know, effectively the long memory, if you tell them, hey, this is what I'm going to do over the next 6 months before I fundraise, and you don't deliver on all of that, they will remember that. And it's not even their memory that needs to remember it. They have deal flow systems, or they will track all of that. And that's something that you're setting yourself up to fail. You might still accomplish a lot, but maybe not everything. And it's in my opinion, not the best approach. Secondly, on the short attention spans, you know, VCs like momentum, they like growth. That's what we like and look for in our companies. If you're delaying that process out by 6 months extra trying to build a relationship, that actually feels like there's a lot less momentum to your funding round. So step 1, don't talk to investors too early. Step 2 is get your house in order. So again, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs approach us and they really just haven't even put their deck together. They haven't got anything ready. And, you know, before you talk to investors, you should have all of this prepped, because when you then start to talk to investors, you can concentrate on the meetings with the investors, the questions they're asking, rather than preparing materials. So, you know, a lot of this is obvious, but things like funding decks, teasers, cap tables, financial plans, you know, market assessments, that sort of stuff, have all that ready. The next thing is practice your pitch. There'll be some people listening to this who are gifted orators and storytellers, and great for them. But I can tell you, after listening to thousands of pitches over the last 10 years, that the majority of people just aren't gifted orators and storytellers, and that's completely fine. That is not a compulsory trait to build a huge company. But when it comes to pitching, you know, practice makes perfect, and the more you practice it, the better you'll get. And I can't tell you the amount of times that entrepreneurs have pitched to us where they tell us, you know, this is the very first time that we've pitched the company in front of anybody, and you know, and it often shows. You know, and we see it even in our own portfolio, where these are companies that we already think are great companies, great founders, great products. And you know, when they come and practice their pitches for their Series A, you know, their first pitch versus the one that they eventually go live with, you know, after we've made them practice it a ton, I mean, honestly, you're talking about chalk and cheese in difference here, and the final one being so much better. And that is down to practice. And so, you know, step 2 is really get your house in order, get everything ready, and then practice your pitch so that you're ready and you're polished with it. Step 3, how to target the right investors. You know, I see a lot of entrepreneurs do this kind of spray and pray strategy where they just think all I need to do is find the one investor that will put the money in. And the reality is that you're much more likely to get capital from the investors who understand your space, who can add value and support your business. So the biggest advice I give when it comes to targeting the actual investors is think about what are the top challenges you're going to face over the next 18 to 24 months. You know, maybe that could be, you know, getting product market fit. Maybe it could be targeting certain types of customers. Maybe it's pricing. Maybe it's leadership. Maybe it's engineering. Whatever it could be. Write down what are the kind of top 3 to 5, and then use those as effectively scoring to figure out what are the best investors for you. And that could be angel investors, that could be VCs. And the great thing now is that there's so much information available online that you can really understand in depth which investors have what skills, what experience, have worked with what similar companies that you might have to your company, and use that to then find those people. Okay, great. So now you've figured out those kind of 15 to 20 most valuable potential investors, and those could be angels and VCs. And again, actually, one other thing I'd comment is when it comes to the VCs, firms are, it's important to think about firm, but in reality, what you should be focusing on is not on firm, but on the investor in the firm. There are people in Frontline who bring very different experiences and values to any particular company. And so different partners in Frontline or different investors in Frontline might be more suitable for different companies. And that's the same for almost every single venture capital, for every single company looking to speak to venture capital firms. So now that you've got the kind of list of investors that you want, now step 4 is lining up the kind of the intros, if you will. So let's say you've got 15 to 20 people, try and look on LinkedIn and social media, try and figure out which are the warmest introductions you can get to those people. Now, I understand that not everyone will have warm introductions to every investor, but as a starting point, figure out if you can get any warm introductions. Then reach out to, so for example, Alex, if I saw that you were connected to an investor that I wanted, I'd say, Alex, hey, can you introduce me to X investor? I don't want the introduction right now, but in a month's time when I start to fundraise, will you be able to make that introduction? So you're just lining everything up. Then for the investors that you don't have warm introductions to, again, the great thing is that there's so much information online. Firstly, there are some VCs who are very open with their contact information and put it on their websites, put it on the internet, on their LinkedIn's and so forth. That's great. Then you have that. For the ones that don't, look at their social media. So many people use different platforms to communicate. Some might be Twitter, some LinkedIn, some even on Instagram. I see quite a lot more using Instagram, and DM them on those platforms when you're ready to fundraise. But first, figure out what is the right platform to contact them on. So now you've got your material in order, you figured out who the right investors are, and you've got the right routes to each of those investors. Then the final step is kind of lights, camera, action. Press that launch button and get everything going at once. Sounds a bit hectic and mad, but because you've got everything prepped and ready, you should actually be able to get through this pretty quickly. And the great thing is that the venture capital world in particular is honestly, it's one of the leakiest buckets in the world when it comes to gossip. VCs are meeting and talking to each other all the time, and they're always sharing information. Our business is a huge amount about trading information with other venture capital firms. And so if you're trying to target all the key people at once, word will spread around very quickly that this company is raising, this company looks interesting, because everyone's like, oh, I just heard from this company, yeah, I'm speaking to them too. And that really helps you build momentum in your round. Of course, these steps don't guarantee anybody to be able to fundraise. What I'm trying to do is trying to shift the odds in your favor. And if you can really try and be prepared, have everything lined up, which really amplifies the momentum you can build in a fundraise, you are much more likely to get an investment round together. And if you've targeted the investors in the right way, you should hopefully be able to bring in the right investors that hopefully will be adding the most value to your company. So you asked for kind of 3 core takeaways. What I'd say is, don't speak to investors too early. Target investors based on who's going to help you with the best challenges, and really don't spread it out. Try and do it all at once when you're ready to go.
Awesome. Well, William, thank you so much for answering that question. Really great advice there for anybody that's looking to approach the right investors and raise that next round. Thanks, William.
Great.
And where can people find you online?
They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on our website, in general. And thank you for maybe setting that up, Alex. If Frontline happens to be on that list of investors you think is going to add a lot of value, please reach out. We're very available on many different platforms. So you can, I'm sure, find a way to get in contact with us.
Awesome. Great stuff. Thanks, William McQuillan.